though, video you've got to see. It shows state police wrongfully arresting 7 innocent people for a crime they didn't commit.
7 sober drivers charged with DUI arrested by different troopers in different parts of the state.
It's the latest discovery in Chief Investigative Reporter Jeremy Finley's sobering problem investigation.
Go ahead and step on out of the car and we're going to have a conversation, okay?
On the evening of June 23rd, Stephanie Fair was about to find out she was in double trouble.
There's a very distinct odor of alcohol that comes from either a person or inside the vehicle.
Right.
Okay.
I understand, but I on my life, I don't drink alcohol. I just ate.
When he started asking me about drinking, I instantly got this feeling in my stomach, like, this is bad.
And it was. She'd been pulled over for failing to move over, something the state trooper was not pleased about.
She almost hit me when I was wrapping up a traffic stop. I come up to the car and it just reeks of alcohol. How's she doing the test? You can see it in her eyes.
He clearly states
Yeah.
he could smell the odor of alcohol beverage.
Yeah, when he said he could smell it, I know this is corrupt. This is completely wrong.
Place your hands behind your back.
Why?
Because you're being placed under arrest for DUI.
But I don't. But wait.
Ma'am?
Why? But I haven't drank anything. But I don't drink.
And she was right. Not only did her blood work show she had neither alcohol nor drugs in her system, her attorney got video of where she'd been before being pulled over. That's her getting ice cream.
I have tried. I was more scared being with that cop alone than I actually was inside the jail.
I was terrified.
Candace Slate can sympathize.
It's hurting to do that on my knee.
After her car flipped in an accident, a state trooper asked her to do a field sobriety test, clearly in pain.
Ouch, that really hurts.
She doesn't do well.
I know I bombed it. I mean, I was in shock.
Go ahead and put your hands behind your back under arrest for dominant influence.
What?
I thought, oh my God, I'm going to lose my daughter, who I can't lose her. You know, I can't lose my license. I mean, this is my life.
Several $1,000s paid to an attorney later, she got her blood work. No alcohol. Her level of prescription medication so low, the charge of DUI was dismissed.
I ended up broke, trying to prove my innocence. Yes, I won. It was dismissed, but I'm terrified to drive now.
It also happened to Labrisha Beatty.
It has had a traumatic impact on me.
An employee of NASA, a state trooper charged her with DUI in Giles County. Her blood work later showed she was completely sober.
There is a real issue. There is an issue in Tennessee.
And it turns out state troopers didn't just wrongfully arrest these 3 women. They also arrested Reed Hawley and Henry Esslinger and Keith Von Susten and Thomas Manis, all arrested for DUI, whose blood work later showed they were sober enough to drive. But those are just the cases of drivers that we found. Turns out there is no data of who's making the false arrests. You may recall, we obtained TBI data that shows 609 people in Tennessee have been arrested for DUI in a 7-year period, whose blood work came back showing they were completely sober. But the TBI tells us they don't keep track of which police agencies are making the arrests.
When you look at just the sheer numbers of people, it's clear that we need to do something differently to make sure that this does not continue to happen to anybody.
Something's wrong, and somebody's not following the proper standards.
We took our findings to Matthew Myatt, a DUI detection expert in Atlanta. His advice to the state's police agencies?
Establish an independent commission to determine the cause. Whether it's training, whether it's bad officers, whether it's a misunderstanding of the proper procedures, whatever the state of Tennessee needs to do to fix this problem, they need to take affirmative, positive steps immediately.
Okay, Jeremy, so many questions after seeing these videos. I want to go back to the first woman we met in your story. Why did the trooper say he smelled alcohol when the driver was sober?
Yeah, Lauren, for 3 days now, we've been asking for an interview with the Highway Patrol to ask those kinds of questions. A spokesman for the THP says they are continuing to review our findings, and we continue to press them for an interview.
It remains unclear, bottom line, why the trooper said he smelled alcohol. Stephanie Fair says she didn't have any perfume on, she hadn't used hand sanitizer, and the trooper ultimately found no alcohol in her car. Marius?
Wow, Jeremy, please continue following these stories.
All right, people, what's going on? So you guys saw the newspaper or the newscast report. We have what looks like to be some dirty sheriffing, some dirty police work going on in Tennessee. We have something like 600 people in the span of 7 years being arrested for DUI when they were not, in fact, under the influence of anything. Now, quick back of the napkin math, that number 600 plus, it averages out to about 87 people per year or so, which that's a lot of people over the course of a year, of any given year, that are getting locked up for crimes that they didn't commit, especially DUI. DUI it's an extremely impactful crime. If you get convicted of it, lots of fines, lots of money wasted in defense of it. If you can't afford to defend yourself, your car is going to get towed. You got impound fees, you got DUI training fees. You might lose your license. You can lose your job. If you have kids, you can lose custody. There's a lot that can happen if you get hit with one of these charges, and it's 100 times worse if it was a fraudulent charge. Here's the deal. I want to give a big shout out to one of the users. His username is Loctite9009. He left a message on my last video, and halfway through the message, he was pointing out something like 300 years ago or so, we didn't have an organized police force. And when there was a bad guy who, robbed a bank or deleted someone, and that person needed to be brought to justice, because we didn't have an organized police force, the sheriff of the town would go out and he would find able-bodied men who were armed, or he would arm them and he would deputize them. Now, of course, these people would volunteer. So, yeah, I'll volunteer. I'll go do it. I'll help bring this person to justice. Because this was a fairly regular thing, it was considered a form of civic duty. It was a man's civic duty to, help protect his community. Okay, here's the deal. When it comes to power, you guys have to understand that in all things, power in any system of power seeks to exert itself in all directions as much as possible without bound, right? The sun burns. It doesn't just shine on the earth. It shines on everything, and it's not going to stop just because you get sunburned, right? Power just wants to exert itself. People who seek power, they are almost always the least fit to wield the power. So when you give people power, like the police, you have to make sure that they hold their power in check. Now, it's often very difficult to do that. You guys have to understand, the police, just like any form of government, it's an organic form of power. There are real sentient human beings in those uniforms. And yes, the police are necessary for any good, healthy, strong society. They are necessary. But you have to understand, they are a necessary evil. In a perfect world, we wouldn't need the police. We would police ourselves, or we would all be like-minded in terms of morality. But that's not what it is. So we do need police. But because of how power affects all people in all things, you have to hold them in check. Right? It's like there's an old saying. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if it's an American saying or an English saying, but it basically speaks to fire. If you put fire in the hands of a blacksmith, the blacksmith will build all the tools necessary for the carpenter to build you a home. If you put fire in the hands of the stonemason will build all the stones necessary to reinforce the community that the carpenter has built. And he'll go one step farther and build you a road that leads you to the future. If you put fire in the hands of the baker will feed your family for generations. Basically saying in the hands of responsible individuals, fire is used to build. But when you put fire in the hands of fools, it can only be used to destroy. The fool will burn absolutely everything. A carpenter will build and build and build. A stonemason will build roads and bridges and buildings. The blacksmith will build many tools and many things. They will be productive in a positive direction when you give them fire. But a fool can only destroy. And when it comes to the police, there's these people are not geniuses. They are the fool who was given fire. Yes, most of them start off righteous. Most of them start off good. But you have to understand the system of policing has to justify its own existence. It's the police force, not the police organization. It is a force. So what happens is these people get on the job and the higher ups have to justify what these people are doing. So what happens? Well, not a lot of people, believe it or not, drunk drive. There's not a lot of drunk drivers. So we have to justify, the police have to justify having their highway patrol and having all their alcohol programs and doing drunk stops. So what happens? They over police. Everything becomes a reason to stop you. And then they start making up charges. They plant evidence. They arrest people and they say, oh, well, we don't have to give you a breathalyzer. We'll just give you a field sobriety. Spin in a circle and touch your nose and look to the sky and say the alphabet backwards. They give you these tests that are meant for you to fail. And I think the only test that's really actually admissible in court is the breathalyzer. And in this case, these people were refusing to allow individuals to blow on the breathalyzer. And some of them, like they get to the police station and they have a blood draw, the alcohol level is coming back 0. You guys have to understand, when it comes to keeping the police in check, once again, this is not an anti-police video. This is not an anti-police video. I am pro-police. I believe the police are necessary, but they're a necessary evil. When it comes to keeping the police in check, you guys have to be civically aware. You have to be civically active. One thing I like to ask people is, do you know your neighbor? Wherever you live, if let's say you live in a home, do you know the people who live across the street? Do you know your neighbor on either side of you? If you know, where do they work? Where do they go to school? What do they do? What are their names? How is things going with their wife? How often do you talk to them? When I was a kid, for reference, I'm 40. When I was a kid, I knew everybody in my neighborhood. My mother grew up with those people. This isn't the way things are now. If you live in an apartment, when was the last time you talked to your across the hall neighbor, your downstairs neighbor, your upstairs neighbor? How many people in your community do you know? Probably not that many. Now think about it. When it comes to the police, you don't know the police, and you don't know the police who are patrolling your neighborhood. I remember when I was growing up, there were 3 cops who lived in my neighborhood, and they policed my city. Now, times have changed, and now I don't think you can go to any city in America outside of something like Mississippi where a police officer is policing the very city that they live in. I think there was actually some sort of laws or something that went into effect to make sure that they can't. So whatever city you live in, the police that police that city, the cops that police that city, they are from out of town. And any cops that live in your city, they police a city 30 miles over. It is what it is. But when it comes to keeping cops in line, you have to understand, nobody can hurt you faster, to a higher magnitude, and with as numerous a frequency as the person who is right next to you. The police are going to hurt you before any president. The judge in your town can hurt you more than anything the Supreme Court can do. Do you know who the judges are in your district? Did you vote for them? Right? Most men, believe it or not, don't vote. Women outvote men almost something like 3-2, if not more. Like Most people aren't civically aware. They're not civically active. Do you know who your sheriff is? Did you vote for them? Do you know what their policies are? Do you go to city hall meetings? Do you go to town hall meetings? How civically aware and active are you? Because when you're not civically aware, when you're not civically active, the police will abuse you. They'll abuse everybody. This is why you have speed traps everywhere. If you live in the Midwest, you know there are speed traps everywhere. These little towns in Ohio, you'll be cruising down the street, it's 55. You come to a stop sign and all of a sudden the speed limit is like 35. Boom, just like that, you get hit. Oh, you were going 55. Well, the speed limit says 35. Yeah, that's back there. And they just expect you to know. Those are speed traps. They go up because enough people don't complain. Enough people aren't civically aware. Enough people aren't raising their voice. You guys have to understand that the only way to protect yourself from people that you yourself have given power to, and we've all given our power to the police, right? It just is what it is. It's the society we live in. The only way to protect yourself from these people is to understand that you have to be eternally vigilant if you want to maintain your freedom. This is the theory behind the Second Amendment. Problem is, you'll never use the Second Amendment as it's intended. You know, the Second Amendment isn't there for you to protect yourself against the crackhead down the street or whatever person breaks in. It's there for you to protect yourself against a tyrannical government. But if you ever used your firearm against a police officer, even if you were 100% justified, you do life. You go into jail for life, right? So, you know, and that's a conversation for another time. But what I'm saying is, you guys have to understand that you have to be always vigilant that people are going to abuse their power. You have to get your head out of your cell phone. You have to get your head out of, you know, Friday night football if you have teenage kids, Saturday morning football if you like that. You need to know when your local government is meeting to pass certain ordinances and certain laws, because they'll pass these things in the middle of the night. They'll pass these things on a Saturday morning. They'll pass these things at 8 o'clock on a Thursday. They'll have a town hall and no one shows up except the old people, right? No one shows up to these town halls. Every city in America is required to post when they're doing town hall meetings and certain other things that people are going to vote on. And guess who shows up? Nobody. So then the governing members of that body, they vote on it. And then what? Some stupid ordinance goes in. One of the craziest things I've ever heard of, resisting a police officer, not resisting arrest, resisting a police officer or resisting a peace officer. That is a real thing, that you can literally be arrested for resisting a peace officer or resisting an officer, not resisting arrest. I don't know when this became a thing, but I know in California it's a thing. I think it's a thing in New York and a lot of the major cities. It's a thing. And it's basically some ordinance that the cops passed. The people didn't pass it. The people didn't vote for this. The cops just said, you know what? We should be able to arrest people when they don't give us their information. When we're trying to do our job and they're not being cooperative, we should be able to arrest you. And it's a thing. You can literally be arrested for resisting an officer, not resisting arrest. It's two different things. So things like this, these crazy ordinances that go in, it crescendos in, you know, the cops arresting you for DUI when you haven't done anything, because they have to exert themselves. If the police come to a particular city and they crush all the crime, they're not just going to stop and say, okay, job's done, let's go home. They're going to find more things to police. They're going to find more things to outlaw, right? And this is why I say the price of freedom, eternal vigilance. The cops aren't going to stop, just like the carpenter isn't going to stop building chairs and tables and homes. The blacksmith is not going to stop building tools for everyone who needs them, weapons for every soldier who needs them. The stonemason isn't going to stop baking bricks and making roads and bridges. The police officer is not going to stop looking for things to criminalize. Systems of power seek to exert themselves, and this is often what happens. You have innocent people caught in between a person who is ill fit to have power and the system of power itself. And what happens? People go broke trying to fight these cases, and people have their lives turned around. And keep in mind, this is not even a race thing. It was only one of the people that you saw there was black. It was a bunch of white folks. So this isn't something that's, targeted at black people. This is affecting everyone. So I don't want to beat this into the dirt. I don't want this to seem like an anti-cop type of deal. I just want you guys to understand that as a responsible individual, it is your civic duty. Shout out to Loctite 909. It's your civic duty to be aware of what's going on. Be aware of what ordinances the cops are putting in place. Be aware of who the judges are that are getting voted in. You need to be aware of what's going on at the local level, because your judges, your district attorneys, your sheriffs, your deputies, those are the people who can hurt you the most, because they have the most access to you. They're closest to you, and they're going to hurt you the most. And they're not going to restrain their power if you're not going to restrain it, if you're not going to make them. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll get back at you on the next one. Peace.